Samsung fans are not going to be happy with this one, but it has to be said. Is this already empty? Yes, but that's beside the point. So today's video comparison is going to be between the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Xiaomi 13 Pro, showcasing the difference in terms of camera performance. Now the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra are already stacked up against the Mi 11 Ultra. And of course, if you want to check that one out, link in the description where you can check that one out. But it's quite telling where Samsung currently is when it comes to the photography side of their phones. Either way, let's compare the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Xiaomi 13 Pro. And no, the Samsung doesn't have any magical update just yet. Don't know if it's going to be any magic, but we'll find out later when we get that update and I do an update video on that. Either way, let's dive into the video. Now let's begin with the main sensor. Now of course there is a difference in size when it comes to the sensor itself. We have a 1-inch sensor size on the Xiaomi 13 Pro, with on the Samsung being a 1/1 3-inch sensor size. While showcasing different images taken on both, I will discuss my findings in general. The Xiaomi 13 Pro goes for the far more natural look. Things have contrast to them and it allows subjects to feel like they stand out. It makes the image look far less flat. Look at this building for instance. On the Xiaomi that building stands out, and not because of saturation or separation, but because of the good contrast. And when looking at the Samsung, it feels like the building is blending in with the environment, which simply isn't what it is in reality. The image therefore looks far more appealing on the Xiaomi 13 Pro. Now while Samsung isn't good at color accuracy, in some situations I do like what the colors do, even though it isn't what that tint is at all. Like this water shot, that looks appealing to me in terms of colors. With this green teal-like effect, the color in the water looks really good. And a lot more haze on the background also gives that mountain a little bit of extra. Again, it is not what it was, but the shot itself looks fine to me. And in terms of colors, it actually looks quite nice. Apart from of course the flare. And inside the Church of Arnhem I have some notes as well. Shots again are far superior on the Xiaomi and the difference are much clearer now. The contrast, while a bit higher than what it really is on the Xiaomi side, it does give more of that look like what it was. Dynamic range is also far better without overdoing it, as you can see on the light itself. And that light, it was the color like it is on the Xiaomi 13 Pro, not on the Samsung. Not to mention that with some shots, the Samsung looks a bit noisy. Now let's move on to the ultra wide. Just like the comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Mi 11 Ultra, Samsung easily gets handled by the Xiaomi 13 Pro. Details are better on the Xiaomi and it has better highlights and contrast as well. The Samsung once again looks a little bit flat, but that's not it. Samsung images also have in ultra wide quite a bit of noise to them, especially around the roof. It just isn't very good. And yes, maybe that magic update will fix it. But for now, this is what we have. And this is also the case in this beautiful church. Images have more noise to them than they really should have. And when it comes to the ultra wide, I really want Samsung to perform better here. Yes, at a quick glance, the images look good, but that's more down to the subject than what Samsung has done here in terms of processing. It's really failing hard here when it comes to that ultra wide. What I will give Samsung though is portrait, not because of the feel of the shot, but the far superior separation of things, where whatever this statue is holding just disappears on the Xiaomi 13 Pro. With that being said though, I know that Xiaomi can deliver some amazing portraits with the Xiaomi 13 Pro, but whatever is happening here, it is definitely better on the Samsung in terms of separation. So let's discuss the telephoto, but it does come with a caveat. On the Xiaomi 13 Pro, this is a 3.2 times zoom, and it comes with this floating lens that allows for stunning close-up shots and probably the best I've ever taken on any phone. Where on the Samsung it is a 3 times zoom, so do keep that in mind. There is a slight zoom difference when comparing these shots, so composition won't be the same. The position however that I'm at, the way that I take the shot are pretty much the same. It would be unfair to either of them to make it the same number. And basically when it comes to these, I will say that I come back to the comments that I had about the main sensor. Samsung has a brighter approach and a lesser in terms of dynamic range, and the contrast again is better on the Xiaomi 13 Pro as well as the colors. Now of course there is a level of zoom missing on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi 13 Pro doesn't have a periscope, the Ultra does, but the 13 Pro does not. It doesn't have that 5 times optical zoom that the Samsung does have, and that does give the edge to the Samsung. It's simply because of that versatility. Allowing you to use different lenses and different focal lengths is really nice. The versatility is solid, and this also works really well in video recording. I think here Samsung has done a good job. So by default it runs here, especially in terms of versatility. Just wish the results were as good as the versatility. Now with low light information is needed in general when it comes to Xiaomi. We have something called Leica Vibrant and Leica Authentic. I always use Authentic. This gives a little bit more contrast and a less brighter shot with a little bit less saturation. More to what you can actually see. But in low light this actually matters a lot. You can get a really different feel of the image itself using Leica Vibrant instead of Authentic. Shadows are less contrasty and therefore the image is more like you would see on any other phone. But when it comes to the feel of night, I actually still prefer Authentic. Authentic gives that feeling of night, where when it comes to a lot of phones, it doesn't. It removes that feel of low light situations, and therefore I feel like Authentic for me works the best. But do keep that in mind. If you do want brighter images in terms of low light and in daytime photography as well, simply use Vibrant. Anyway, let's compare the two with that in mind. And yes, the Xiaomi does a better job of giving that low light feel. I feel like it's darker outside and more like it was. And I also think again that it does a better job with contrast, noise reduction and details. With that being said, I don't think Samsung is doing a poor job. For instance, the main and the ultra-wide result look very similar, where on the Xiaomi 13 Pro you can tell that you're switching between two different lenses. The effect and style is very different. Again, details are better on the Xiaomi, but you can tell that you are using a different lens. But as we go through the images, you can see some grain effects on the Samsung shots, especially with the ultra-wide. And that's something I haven't seen a long time on phones in low light. So Samsung really needs to get on that quickly.
Xiaomi 13 Pro versus Samsung. It's the same as the Mi 11 Ultra. Contrast far superior on the 13 Pro. Samsung looks over sharpened. Mountain doesn't have anywhere near the detail that the Xiaomi does. 4K, 30 frames next to each other. As such. And Samsung is really bright. Contrast then kind of dies. With that, again, mountain far more details. On the Xiaomi, it's not even remotely close. I will say the zoom function is really good with Samsung. You just press the zoom here with The 13 Pro, you need to slide to zoom, which is a bit annoying. And of course it has a 5 times versus a 3.2 times. Front facing camera, do I need to make a comment? One, the Xiaomi doesn't look near as good as the Samsung. Colors are gone. But 1080p max on the Xiaomi versus 4K on the Samsung. I don't necessarily like what Samsung doing with their video, but definitely looks better.
So, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra versus the Xiaomi 13 Pro. Straight away I will say that the Xiaomi 13 Pro is one of my favorites when it comes to mobile photography. It goes for a bit more contrast, a bit more of a natural look, and no, it's not faultless. There are some situations where, for instance, the Xiaomi 13 Pro in low light doesn't have that yellow reflection or the yellow light that it needs to have. But apart from that, there is very little that I can fault it at when it comes to a quick mobile photography experience, and Xiaomi does it probably best, with Vivo having a very different approach, a more brighter and more saturated approach, but that also is a spectrum that I actually really like depending on how they approach it. Samsung doesn't do any of that, and I feel like Samsung is really failing at the moment when it comes to mobile photography experience. I know people will say it does fine and it does decently well, but simply put, if you're paying this kind of money for it, it shouldn't lose against a 3-year-old device, especially in something like noise reduction, because the Samsung does have quite a bit of that depending on the situation, but also just the general style of it. I know this is something that is for every person a little bit different. Personal preference matters here. But when it comes to Samsung, it just feels lackluster. It feels like it has no depth to the shot itself. Yes, from a technical standpoint, there are some situations where I feel like Samsung does really well. For instance, quickly switching between video in terms of ultra wide to normal to telephoto to periscope. That's something that I really appreciate when it comes to the Samsung. Software I appreciate as well. I think Samsung is one of the better ones here. But when it comes to the result of the camera itself, here I feel like Samsung is just kind of lackluster, and it needs to work on that. And maybe if they cannot do it by themselves, they need someone like Canon to help them out or anything like that, because simply put, right now, for me, Samsung in terms of mobile photography is kind of lackluster. But again, there is somewhat of a preference coming into that as quotation as well. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this comparison. Let me know which one has your preference, which one you would pick out of these two. But the biggest thing I can say is that often I kind of forget that I have the S24 Ultra. And that's a clear statement on what I think about the camera itself. Either way, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and talk to you guys in the next.